I'd like to call to order the January meeting of the Fairport Municipal Commission. Could we have the roll call?
Commissioner Jordan?
Present.
Commissioner Dulugash?
Present.
Commissioner Keefe?
Present.
Commissioner Schlaba?
Here.
Chairperson Stuckey?
Here. Thank you. And welcome to visitors. Would you care to introduce yourselves, and do you have anything to share with us?
Well, my name is Dan Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
Live on Miles Avenue, and I'm very interested in the EV charger program and all things electric here.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, my name is Glenn Alexander. I actually live in the town of Parenton, but I'm also like Dan, very interested in charging and the future of charging. We look at EVs, and we're interested in how the village moves forward with the whole process of electrification.
Great, welcome. Wonderful, welcome. And welcome, Mayor.
I'm Julie Demarias. I'm the mayor of the Village of Fairport. I'm really excited to kick off the 2025 meeting for the Fairport Municipal Commission and to welcome our guests, our new employees, and our new commissioners.
All right, so unfinished business. First order is approval of the minutes from the December meeting. Anyone have any questions, updates on those?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Brian?
I was gonna say, just because so Lauren's probably
Yeah.
good, so you won't be able to vote on these, you'll abstain from this, you're not being present.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. New business. So,
Does Lauren need?
Yeah, just, you should just say,
Just say
as
abstain.
opposed.
Abstain.
Yeah, abstain,
Okay.
so for the record, we were gonna document it anyway.
all right, since we just spoke about the Robert's rules. All right, new personnel introductions.
So Alex may stop up here. Oh, hold on just a minute. So we have two new employees in the Village Hall. One is in our billing office and one is in our accounting office. I'm going to first start with Miriam. She started just last week, but she's doing great so far, already making a positive impact on the accounting department. We moved upstairs and she's been absolutely phenomenal so far. And then Mary Beth, you want to introduce your new employee in the billing office?
This is Alex Wayman. She started in our office about a month ago, and she did right now.
Wonderful, welcome.
Welcome.
All right, can we have an update then on the advanced metering infrastructure? Schedule in progress.
Give you that update. Good morning. So out of the 18,000 meters that we're replacing, we're up to right around 4,000 as of this morning. So we're continuing to climb and get those done by our deadline, which is May 31st.
That's 4,000 complete.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we're right on track.
So Commissioner Dulugash, so what the background on this is we have roughly around 18,500 customers or individual meters, right? And it serves about 50,000 people within the Village of Fairport and Town of Parenton. That's our franchise, if you will, of customer base. And so what this process is we are in the process of replacing all our meters that you see on the side of your house, those little round, clear things. The other ones we have are a little more, they're radio controlled, so you would see like a Fairport Electric car go by. It would have a reading system that would be radio controlled. We would get in close proximity. We'd be able to read your meter. Therefore, that's how we would bill you based on your actual kilowatt hour sales. This new process, just like you probably read in the paper with RG doing the same thing. It's a digital system and it's automatic. So all this goes through the air via Wi-Fi and our networking system. It all goes to our headquarters and operations center. And we don't have to be able to do that. So we can see if you have an outage, we can see what your kilowatt hours are, we can see what's going on. Eventually at some point we'll unroll some other features that maybe you as a customer may be interested in, how your usage is being done, so you can kind of control your consumption and see what your heavy uses are. But that's the process of this. We're doing all of it really in-house. We started this. with a bond and so forth, roughly 3 months ago, 2 months ago, started purchasing and so forth. So we're making a lot of headway. To do all that in-house and go to 18,000 different houses, and where these are, I mean, a lot of these things have been in for decades, 20 plus years. So some are behind places. Some people have built boxes around them. Sometimes they're in people's homes. So it's a process that gets us a chance to be intimate with our customers and see what's going on at their properties. But Lauren and her team at FMC have been working on this, and we expect to be done sometime, summer-ish?
Our deadline is May 31st.
There you go.
Before we go live with Meridian in June.
The only thing I cared about is I got my new meter the other day, so we're in good shape.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I got mine before you, Brian.
But you're special. Outside of the top tier, and then it goes to me, so we're good.
Great. Lauren, could we also have an update on the EV chargers?
Sure. So last month we talked about dropping down the number of chargers down from 28, which we're paying a yearly subscription for, down to 24. With the holidays and everything, we're still working with EV Connect to figure out how to set up the pricing schedule and get a revised invoice for the dropping down to 24 cords. So should have that finalized by the end of this week. Is my hope. So nothing's changed yet. We're just still in progress there.
Do you have an anticipated timeline for when those charges go into effect?
I would hope in the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Should have a meeting sometime this week with EV Connect to figure out how that works. It sounds like they're going to reimburse us quarterly for the charging costs that we would receive. So, moving forward.
Lauren, can you give a little bit of background to Commissioner Guladosh about why we're doing this and, the cost before versus the cost now, and just so there's some background with this process, so she's aware.
Around 2018, 2019, we applied for a grant through NYSERDA to get 28 charging ports installed in the village. We have 5 or 6 different public parking lots where we have these chargers. The New York Power Authority partnered with us in NYSERDA to pay for the subscription costs for the networking, which is EV Connect. So that gives us all the usage data, kilowatt hours used, trees saved, CO2 emissions prevented, anything you could ever want. So they've been paying for that subscription cost, so that would allow us to get all the data over the past few years. So we have all that data. We did a cost-benefit analysis on what we're paying and what we need to charge customers to charge their vehicles to kind of at least break even, and then pay for maintenance and capital replacement costs for the chargers and labor as well. So we did the cost-benefit analysis, did a short presentation on that last month, and we came up with we're going to drop down to 24 ports at this time, and then collect the data over the next year, see where we're at cost-wise, and see if we need to adjust, based on how many people are charging, what's getting used. So we're anticipating it will go down once they're no longer free to charge. So we're just going to kind of monitor that and adjust from there.
And so currently you've assumed that we're going down to 25% of current usage, right?
That was the assumption. Just
Just a
best guess. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. So, that's probably what's going to happen when you can charge at home for a fraction of the cost that you can charge out in the public. When you're really looking at the replacement cost of the modules, these things don't last really forever at all, and the technology changes pretty quickly. So as Lauren was alluding to, when the data that we're getting to see is, what's the use time, how long are people being parked there, what's those types of things. If the analysis states, hey, on an average, this parking lot can be served currently with 2 versus 4, when those fail, there's no sense to replace those. Now, if the demand increases over time, the infrastructure's still there, you can put a new unit in there and meet that demand. right? So we're trying to keep the cost down realistic and just meet that demand as it happens. We have a lot of chargers in a very small proximity compared to a lot of places. Village of Fairport is in New York Power Authority EV model community, so it was meant to kind of showcase and promote EV charging system, and promote EV use. The 14450 area code is one of the more concentrated area codes of EV utilization in the state, and that was kind of one of the reasons why we significantly increased the infrastructure in our community and so forth as well. So, but yeah, I mean, there's significant cost to maintain these, to deal with them. The networking costs, as Lauren alluded to, with respect to you go there. I mean, you hook up an app. That's a third-party software. It's not ours, so there's a cost to that. There's a cost to having the Wi-Fi and be able to use credit cards and all the other things that come with that. And again, it's supposed to be for convenience. It's not supposed to be used for your current resident everyday charging. You know, it probably makes more sense to do that at home or another place. But if you're coming here, you're visiting our community, it's a highly attractive area. People come there. We have that capability for people to utilize that. And if you're having those capabilities, some people are willing to pay for that. If you're going to be here all day long, or whatever the case may be, you're driving from afar. So, yeah.
Hey Brian, has there been, or does there need to be like a public notification period for the pricing?
Yeah, we'll do that once we have everything worked out and the effective date and what the charges are and that type of thing, and what the current map will be for availability of usage.
Okay.
So we'll put all that, publish it, and mark it so people are aware of what's going on.
Okay.
How will that get publicized? You thought about that?
We're going to have you mail it out to all your friends,
Right,
your
yeah.
Fairport email, say, contact Rachel as the commissioner. No, we'll get it out. We can either put it in our bills, we can put it on our website, we'll do social media blasts, we'll put it out on our Everbridge system, which anybody that's interested in electric, anything Village of Fairport can sign up for text alerts, email alerts, social media alerts, whatever you'd like to do. So we'll put it all out there and see what we can do to get it out there the best that we can. I'm sure once we figure out all that too, there'll be pricing models and maybe some signage that goes up in some of the parking lots associated with what the charges are. But I think once you do that, you can really upload the apps too. So once people get there, all the costing and the rules and stuff are there as well, right? Or,
Yeah, everything should be right in the app, the
Right.
cost for everything.
But people will know before they'll get there.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we do it. We'll make sure we.
Click on the thing.
Pardon me?
You have to accept the charges to start.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You can't do anything without it, right? And we get the credit card swipe before you decide whether you want to do it or not, or
Yeah.
what have you. So the whole point is, I think we had talked, Lauren, about when you really have a lot of chargers and you see usage, a lot of the chargers right now just because they're free, and we're not really. The whole point was to kind of market and create this environment of usage and promotion. At some point, that like anything, like a pilot type thing, it has to go away and transition to realities. But a lot of folks, they'll park there in the morning at 8 and then they'll leave at 5. Well, the car charged in an hour, right? So the turnover, the cyclical rate of that is not maximizing its potential. So if you're going to sit there for 8 hours, 10 other cars could have been there that day, maybe using it, or whatever the case may be. So the whole point is to get in there, charge. The notifications will come to your phone saying, hey, your car's charged, you have a 20-minute grace period, move or whatever, and then we'll start charging the fee. So because there's a cost associated with not having someone else go there, right?
Yeah.
So it's a cost to the consumer by not having the availability. It's a cost to us from revenue generation. So.
I think preliminarily last month, you had mentioned like 43 cents a kilowatt hour, and then idle time of after 30 minutes, then you start getting charges.
Yeah, we would propose to implement like a 30-minute grace period before we would start charging for parking.
Yeah.
I mean, the cord has to be connected to the car in order for those charges to occur, but yes, that's the plan.
Any other questions? Or questions from the audience? All right.
No.
Next up, we had an update on the MUA Accounting and Finance Workshop.
I can talk. So, we have our accounting and finance workshop. I sit on the MUA board. For Lauren's knowledge, it's the Municipal Electric Utilities Association. It's essentially a kind of an educational, promotional, marketing, and lobbying group for the municipal electric utilities in the state. So there's 47 municipal electric utilities owned by municipalities in the state throughout. Fairport's just one of those. So there's this group of people that come together. We all go to conferences, and it's educational and those types of things. So there's a board set up to help facilitate these conferences and different things that we're doing. MUA right now is in the process of negotiating increased rates from the New York Power Authority. Most of our power, 83 to 87% of our power is purchased from the New York Power Authority through what they call preference power, which is the hydroelectric power that's created in Niagara Falls. And the rest of that power, any other power above and beyond that allocation, which we do use, we purchase on the open market. That association, I don't expect to remember all this, I'm just giving you it's called NIMPA, which is the New York Municipal Power Agency. So our electric superintendent sits on that board. That board, its sole purpose is to hedge or buy futures of electric, what we think we can get a good price for, and then they'll lock in those prices either a year or 2 years in advance based on weatherization, data, consumption, what the markets are doing. We have a lot of consultants that assist us in that analysis and making good decisions. And then we'll do that based on what the needs are. And we buy that supplemental power for all electric utilities in the state that are part of the NIMP Association, which is probably 90% of them. Right? So there's a lot that happens outside just the distribution side of the physical side of what Fairport Electric does that we're a part of every day. And we'll get into that as more comes on. We have an R energy efficiency program and all these other workshops and educational things. As far as the electric utilities are concerned in MUA, we do all the training for our line workers in-house. So we train all municipal electric line workers in the state here at our facility. We utilize our facility because we have the room and the capability to do that. And we have trainers that come in and do it. So it's quite extensive. Fairport Electric is it's a big facilitator in a lot of the ongoings of electric systems in the state and tries to stay in the forefront and be a leader in that regard. But anyway, there's an accounting finance workshop, so it's 18th and 19th. It is during the week. We're letting you know that now. I don't have the agenda yet. I don't think it's even out, is it?
I haven't seen it,
Yeah.
but if commissioners would
But
like
if you want to go,
attend.
yeah, we heavily encourage you to go. Now, there's other opportunities and stuff, and we can bring back materials. I don't expect you to take vacation days every time we have a conference and stuff, but if there's times where you can get away, or if you're working from home and you can do some of that there, heavily encourage you to do that. You can ride down with us. We can give you a car. But it'd be great to have you. But it's a great way to kind of meet some folks, see what's going on, get kind of integrated into it a little bit. Your first couple of meetings, you'll probably fall asleep in them. That's perfectly normal. It's expected, actually. But the more you hear this stuff, the more it starts to click. I mean, for years, I would go to these things when I started here, and you're sitting in there, and it's not for nothing, but you're like, I don't feel like I'm getting the value where I can contribute, because you're hearing this stuff, but it's so far removed from my experience. The more all of a sudden one day just kind of clicks, and you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. But you got to integrate sometime, right? So we have annual conferences you'll get to be a part of, and semi-annual conferences, and we'll let you know about all those in advance. Most of them are held in Syracuse for the most part. We'll have some annual conferences that are maybe spread around the state here and there, what have you, for a couple of nights. But they're great opportunities, again, to network, to meet people, to see what's going on, and get a kind of taste of what goes on behind the scenes of just the distribution side that you'll be a part of here. Okay.
So that's in Syracuse. Is it a day and a half probably, or 2 days?
Yeah. It generally starts at 8 o'clock in the morning on the 18th and generally ends around 2 or 3 o'clock on the 19th is what these generally do. You're welcome to stay over if you want to. If not, you can drive back and forth every day. It's really up to you, and we'll pay for all the charges associated with it. But we encourage you to do it if you can.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
All right, next up would be a motion to award various equipment and material bids. So I think we have a quote for tree trimming.
Yep, I have just one here. We bid out the annual tree trimming and dangerous tree removals, which includes the village work as well. So there was a lot of interest this year. Only 2 bidders submitted on time. One was late, so we couldn't accept it, but we're planning to award to Birchcrest for $282,525, which is the the base bid of all the work areas 1 through 35, and then the PO that we are requesting approval to issue is for $450,000. So anything above and beyond the 282 would include any dangerous tree removals like ash trees or storm work. So that would cover the remainder of that amount.
Lauren, can you explain a little bit why we do tree trimming and why this is so important to us?
When we weren't tree trimming or when we weren't keeping up with the tree trimming, our reliability numbers fell significantly. So we try to shoot for 20% of the system on a 5-year basis. The way things are growing, it's more on a 4-year basis, but 4 to 5 years, we trim 20%. So we have our great GIS mapping system, we have all that planned out. So every year we go in and choose which areas we need to trim and what trees we need to remove to keep our system reliable.
It keeps all the branches and everything off of the power lines. Once those happen, it creates a short, either a fire or an outage at minimum. We try to do a good job with it, but everyone sees the horror stories of utilities that go in any community, and you'll see like a beautiful tree, and there's like a hole cut through it where the power lines go through. In our scenario, what's really important is sometimes you'll see like the only thing we truly care about when we trim is the very top part, which is that's the energized electric lines that are up. All that other stuff on the utilities, which on the utility poles that you see, is mostly Frontier or a Greenlight or a Time Warner Cable or fiber or whatever other utilities that have pole right agreements to access our poles for their infrastructure, and they pay us accordingly for that. But sometimes you'll see a lot of, most of the time you'll actually see a lot of tree limbs and leaves covering all of that, but nothing at the top. We don't control that. That's all on them, but they're not as sensitive as far as touch and proximity as you would get with, voltage and electricity that's on the top of the pole. Okay, so when we're trimming, that's what we're doing outside of a dangerous something that may come down. Sometimes you'll see us, we'll trim and we'll take down trees that are quite far from our distribution network, and it may not even be within our right of way. The problem that you get into is you pay it now or you do it later, and it's a fine balance. Because it's like you shouldn't really be trimming that, but the problem is it could be dead or it's only a matter of time, but it's the next wind event that pushes that over into our infrastructure, and we're taking care of it now, but now we're doing it in the middle of the night with overtime crews or in a storm event, which is not fun to do any work, or you're in the dark, and you're taking care of it now, but now it's at the expense of an outage for a customer or something like that too. So it's really important that you do this. It's very, very important for reliability and integrity of the distribution system. But as you can see, it's a very costly measure. It's $2.5 million every 5 years to get through our distribution system. It's not inexpensive to do, but it's something that's expected from Public Service Commission for reliability. Our customers expect it, and it's something that we pride ourselves on in an effort to kind of keep the power on. And when you have outages, you're always going to have them, but we like to have most of them planned. Where we're doing work, we do a shut off, take care of what we need to do, and then we put it back on. Okay.
And this is also a contract that we do on an annual basis as opposed to aligned with the fiscal year, right?
Right. Well, every January we sign a new contract, so it's a little confusing with the timing, but we make it work.
So it sounds like the bid was $282,000, but the recommendation is to award them $450,000 is to account for. Sorry.
Go ahead, finish your statement.
To allow for the emergency work. So it's kind of one. Is it one line item, or do we track it as like separate line items?
It's one PO, one line item. The base bid is what all the work areas were.
Okay.
Which were 35 total work areas, including the village work, which the village will reimburse the FMC for. The total amount we're requesting is $450 to get us through any storms or dangerous tree removals or any work that we feel needs to be added to this year's cycle.
Okay. So Commissioner Jordan, they get a mapping and stuff, and a lot of times their Their folks that do the bidding will go out and look at the work and the right-of-ways within the distribution system that they're bidding on to go see what it's like, what it has to be taken down. They'll put a price on that. But as Lauren alluded to, they're gonna get out there and there's gonna be things that they didn't see, or as Lauren's managing the problems, like, hey, we need to take that tree and that tree, because that's gonna be a problem maybe in a couple of years. Storm events are gonna come in, and then Lauren's gonna say, well, listen, we have 10 trees that fell down over in this neighborhood, we gotta get it done. We're gonna call Birchcrest in to come and do that work. So we have extra money. What we're saying is we need an allocation of about $450,000 a year to adequately respond and maintain the wooded infrastructure around our distribution system to go to work. They're just saying for this type of work, $282,000. We're saying on general, through just past practice, we're always spending $400,000 plus on tree work, regardless of the work that we want to get done. It's just the way things are.
Okay.
And that extra work that's coming in at off times, or hey, go add that oak tree over here, or go remove these 10 ash trees over here. Generally in a storm event too, they cost more. It's an infrequent thing. It's not planned. It's emergency response. It's weekends. So there's a cost to doing that type of work.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have an expectation of how much of this amount is for Port Electric versus Village?
The total 450 will be for FMC. We include the village's bid items in our bid, just so we can manage it under one contract for the village. The village,
I'm sorry. I don't remember what the village gave you for pricing, but they'll go out and say, hey, listen, these are the trees that we want trimmed or removed, right? And then they'll quote that work, correct, Lauren?
right, it came in around, without having it right in front of me, for the village, 35,000 for the
Just
bid
very typical.
items.
So the vast majority of this is
Mm-hmm.
for Port Electric?
Correct.
Yeah, the village actually does around $30,000 to $50,000 a year of removals or trimming per this contract on average.
Right, yeah, so of that 282,000,
Yeah.
part of that is, the small part of that is the village work.
Other questions? Thank you, Lauren. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you. All right, next up we have a motion to write off various inactive account balances.
Yeah, so this is something that we do on an annual basis. It's to write off inactive billing accounts related, and we do it a year and a half later. So this is anything that was made inactive prior to May 31st, 2023. This balance is a little bit lower than we have seen in historical years. That's due to the efforts that our billing office has in terms of following up on these inactive accounts. We also, as part of this write-off, we are not saying that we're not going to continue to collect. We do send all of our inactive billing accounts to a collection agency. They work to try to locate those people and get those monies back. But that said, we are at the point where we're wanting on the accounting records to say that those are unlikely to be collected. So we're asking for a motion to write off these accounts for that purpose. So this is as I mentioned, it's an annual thing, but as part of this write-off, when we build these into the accounting, we are building it also into our rates so that in future rate cases, they can account for this inactive balance and unpaid balance, and so we are able to, we're not going to continue to assume that these are going to be collected. They're going to be built into the rates to help offset the operations.
Is there, you mentioned that these will be sent to collections. Are they sent to collections prior then? How long before?
I believe it's 60 to 90 days. Mary Beth, do you happen to know the?
After 60 days of being inactive, they're set for collection.
Okay,
They already have been on these accounts.
gotcha, thank you.
All right, further questions? All right, I would entertain a motion to approve this write-off.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimous. Next up, we have the financial report.
Good morning, these are the November 2024 financials as well as the December 2024 financial forecast. For November, historically, November is not a great month for the electric utilities. Part of that is we have a delay in terms of when we collect funds compared to when we are paying for the electricity related to that month. So we end up collecting about a month and a half later, just based on the timing of the billing process. So for the month of November 2024, we have about a $300,000 loss. That's on the annual basis that we are at about a $900,000 loss. While that number does seem large, we do generally make up for that as we get into the springtime where we're collecting the revenues related to the winter, but we're paying for the spring electricity. So we end up making our money in terms of the income in the spring. So as much as that sounds like a scary number with the rate, we implemented a new rate in December. So with that built in, all of those things, we will see that probably, we're hoping to see that net loss come down and hopefully get to break even by the end of the year. That November 2024 financials numbers included high electricity bills. The electric purchases are at a higher rate than we have seen historically. That's why we're seeing our purchase power adjustment clause higher than normal, and we will continue to see it increase as we go into the winter months with those higher rates. And as well as we had some large capital improvement projects. That doesn't impact the bottom line of the net income, net loss, but those are substantially reduce the amount of cash that we had in November. We purchased some of the AMI meters, as well as we had about $300,000 in cable injections where we're trying to maintain our underground cables to improve the lifespan of those underground wires. So as part of that, there was a large decrease in the cash flow. We issued a bond anticipation note with the understanding that we were going to have those large capital improvements in December. So we saw the December 2024, we saw the cash flow increase. That was because we had that bond anticipation note of about $2,000. We have not issued the bond for that because we are anticipating further capital improvement investments as part of this. In the spring, we're going to have our second receipt of the AMI meters as well as some substation work coming in. So we're going to build up that the amount of money that we are going to be putting out to debt. But for the time being, in order to lower the amount of interest we're paying, we're only issuing the bond anticipation note for $2,000, and once we have the total cost, we'll tie that into a bond. And that will be in conjunction with one of the village bonds as part of one of their capital projects as well. But it's $2 million for the bond anticipation note that we issued in December. We are expecting on the FMC side that we will have about $4.7 million that we are going to roll into a bond once the projects are all fully spent out. So that is the November financials and December financials, unless anybody has any questions.
A lot of investment in the infrastructure. That's what it's all about, whether it's on the electric fund. Whether that's on the electric fund side or the general fund side, this commission or the village board, there's a heavy reliance and expectation and due diligence done by all parties to make sure that we are continuing to invest in our infrastructure and keep up with those capital needs that are required. It's really, really important. Capital investments don't go away, right, because you don't budget for them or deal with them. And it's something that's tangible and it needs to be done. It only gets more expensive over time. And it's required as a basic necessities of what, local government organizations like ours and different bureaus are expected to do. So we do that heavily. probably more than most, and it's not saying that we're doing above and beyond, we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing. I think if we had another $5 million a year, we'd still put that into infrastructure and keep up with what we're doing, but we maximize what we believe we can do with our existing resources, and that's human resources as well, the people actually doing the work and that type of thing too, to make sure that we have a good, reliable system and that we're keeping our system up for good. The investment that's going to be happening as part of that $4.7 million bond and work will be that substation upgrade, what gives another 20 years of longevity or useful life expectancy into that substation before another overhaul is required, so 20 years minimum. So we continue to do that.
All right, thank you. Any other further questions? All right, I would entertain a motion to accept the financials.
So moved.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. That passed unanimous. Next up would be a motion to authorize payment of the vouchers. So these are the documents that we passed along and signed. They were emailed out ahead of time. Any questions or discussion needed on those?
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Next up, I believe we need to go into executive session to discuss collective negotiations. So this will be the last item in our agenda, so.
You could skip the next meeting.
Sorry, next meeting. Next meeting is January 13th.
It's I think we need a February.
We need a February.
No, sorry.
February
That was Holly. She should have caught it.
I should have caught it before I said it. Next meeting is later today. February
10th.
10th, I think. Okay. Thank you. All right, so I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you to our visitors and guests.
See you, Glenn. Take care. How you been? Yeah.
So, union negotiations.